How many times have you been standing below a steep line thinking, maybe it's fine? Yeah, that word maybe has gotten a lot of people into trouble in the backcountry over the years. Today, we're gonna talk about one of the simplest and most powerful tools for keeping those maybes completely out of your day, and it's called red lighting and green lighting terrain. And I use it literally every day I'm out in the backcountry. When I'm out with partners or clients in the mountains, one of the biggest goals I have is to make decision-making clean and collaborative. Everyone knows what's on the table and what's off. I often think of backcountry skiing and riding as a team sport rather than this individual pursuit. We want to all be on the same page. And that's where this red light, green light system comes in, and it does exactly that. In this video, we'll break down what those lights mean, how to use them before and during a tour, and how they can keep you and your partners out of this gray zone where mistakes love to hide. When we red light a slope, we're saying that it is off the table for the day. It's a deliberate decision and not something that we're going to revisit later when we're standing under it with the sun shining and powder blowing over the ridge. This is something that we do either the night before or the morning of. We don't want to make decisions for what is off the table while in the field because skiing some blower powder can really add some bias into your decision making for the day. Once it's red, it is red. We are not skiing it for the day. And there are a bunch of reasons a slope might land in that category. Number one is avalanche hazard mismatch. If the forecast is calling for a persistent slab on shady aspects, I might automatically red light anything that falls in line with the forecasted avalanche problem for the day. Number two is unmanageable consequences. Even if likelihood is low, terrain traps like gullies, cliffs, or dense trees can turn a small slide into a serious problem. We want a red light terrain where a mistake can be catastrophic. Number three are obvious signs of instability. If we're seeing shooting cracks, hearing whumps, or if there's been avalanches reported nearby, that's a flashing red light. And number four, group or conditions mismatch. Sometimes the snow is totally fine, but the group has some inexperienced people in it, or you're limited on time. That alone is reason enough to call something off limits for the day. Red lighting terrain is all about being proactive. We try to make those calls early when our brains are cool and before powder fever kicks in. That way, when temptation shows up on the skin track, we've already made the decision. It takes the question out of it. So we talked about red lighting, now let's flip it to green lighting. Green lighting is the other half of the system and it's just as important. When we green light terrain, we're saying this zone or this run makes sense for today given the avalanche forecast, the weather, the group dynamics, and our personal risk tolerance. This doesn't mean that it's entirely risk-free, nothing in the backcountry is, but it's the terrain where the level of the risk matches the conditions and the group. So how do we know what to green light? You might think that it's just the opposite of whatever is red, and that kind of is the case, but not always. Number one, we can look at the hazard alignment. If the avalanche problems today are forecasted for shady slopes above 9,500 feet, I'm going to probably highlight slopes below 9,500 feet on all aspects as our potential green-lit terrain. Number two, we have no red flags. We're not seeing any reports of recent avalanche activity, no cracking or collapsing, and stable snowpack tests are coming in from public obs. If I see that, that's giving me a lot more confidence. Number three is group readiness. Does everybody have gas in the tank for the day? Has communication been historically good between partners? And do we have plenty of time to get home safely in case something goes wrong? And number four is our risk tolerance. Does the risk that is associated with that zone or that ski run line up with both my personal risk tolerance and also my partner's? And when I green light terrain for the day, it's a combination of all those four factors. I'm not green lighting terrain simply because it's solely without an avalanche problem. For example, there might be a low avalanche hazard all around the compass, which is potentially a day to go really big in the mountains. But if I'm skiing with an inexperienced skier, then I'm obviously not going to go mark the steep 50-degree couloir as green lit terrain for the day, even if the avalanche problem matches it. Green lighting terrain isn't just about avoiding bad terrain, it's about intentionally choosing good terrain. And when I green light terrain for the day, it's a combination of all those four factors. That's a subtle but a powerful shift. It builds confidence, keeps the day flowing, and makes the group communication way easier. And a really big point to remember is that green isn't permanent. If conditions change, say the winds pick up and starts loading slopes that we'd planned on skiing, that terrain can instantly go from green to red. What this means is that the lights flow in only one direction. Green can become red, but red can never become green. We never want to take anything off of our red lit terrain because that's a decision we made already at home when we were evaluating the stuff without any biases impacting us. Although this can sometimes feel like a silly rule and something that can be easily overridden in a group scenario, it's best practice to use this system conservatively because we're kind of all hoping to be skiing in the backcountry until our 70s. So why does this framework work so well? It's because it kills the gray zone, that place where we say, well, maybe it's fine, let's just go take a look. Most avalanche accidents happen in that gray area, not when people are being totally reckless, but when they're uncertain. When we clearly red light and green light terrain, we kind of simplify everything. Decisions get made before emotions show up. It takes some of the ego and the powder lust out of the equation and makes us overall a lot safer. And communication becomes so much cleaner. When I'm guiding or even just skiing recreationally, I'll literally say when we meet in the morning, all right, these slopes are red, these zones are green. That's what we're sticking to. That gives everyone some clarity, no awkward midday debates, no peer pressure, and no, but it looks so good conversations. I've been in plenty of those discussions, and I've also seen how they can snowball when the group doesn't have a shared language. Red lights and green lights, that kind of gives you that language. And the flexibility piece matters too. If we see new wind loading or the sun starts baking the snow, we can shift terrain from green to red without any drama. It keeps us honest and then keeps the day adaptable. All right, so how do we actually use this in practice? There are kind of two primary steps. Step one is before the tour. You start at home with the avalanche forecast. You look at which aspects, elevation, slope angles are problematic, and red light anything that fits those patterns. For example, let's take this forecast from the Utah Avalanche Center. This is from January 8th, 2025. They're forecasting a persistent slab avalanche problem from east to west at mid and upper elevations, along with a considerable danger rating. Additionally, they've got a wind slab forecasted around the compass on upper elevations as well as from south to north on mid elevations with a moderate danger rating. Additionally, limited avalanches and red flags have been reported by the public. So what would I do in this scenario? Well, I would automatically red light any terrain above 30 degrees and any terrain that is connected to terrain that is above 30 degrees that also falls in that forecasted persistent avalanche problem zone. Then, just as importantly, I'd highlight terrain that does line up with the hazard, and that would be my green zones. If I'm going with a solid group and we have the same risk tolerances, I'd likely green light the rest of the terrain, knowing that I'll probably plan on evaluating that wind slab problem in the field. Wind slabs are something that I personally feel comfortable making in-field decisions on, and whereas I do not feel comfortable doing the same for persistent slab problems. When I'm using a mapping program like CalTopo, I'll literally shade those red areas and those green areas on the map. It gives me a visual plan that I can share with my partners. Additionally, I'll be saving that map directly to my phone. And it's even better if you could do this all as a group. The biggest power of the system is the shared understanding of it all. When everyone's part of the red light and the green light conversation, there's no confusion at decision points. You're all literally on the same map with the same plan using the same language. The second step is what we do during the tour. As you move through the terrain, keep checking what you see against your plan. If you start spotting red flags like recent avalanches or changing temps, move the terrain from green to red. If things are tracking with the forecast and observations are stable, you can stay within those green zones confidently. Backcountry skiing and splitboarding will always have risk. That's part of the appeal. Red lighting and green lighting doesn't remove that risk, but it gives us a simple and effective way to manage it. It creates structure, it builds trust in the group, and it lets us focus on the fun part, which is the skiing and riding, instead of constantly second guessing whether a slope is okay or not. Every professional guide I know uses some version of the system because it works. It's adaptable, it's easy to teach, and keeps everybody on the same page. The more you practice it, the more automatic it becomes. If you found this helpful, give it a like, share it with your touring partners, and subscribe for more backcountry skiing and riding content. And if you want to deepen your avalanche knowledge, check out our online courses over at mountaintrainingcenter.com. I'll drop a link below.